Ollie! Okay, this is 2-5. Now I'm gonna restart the game again, because otherwise the lag is gonna accumulate. And then from 2-5 to 1-5, and then from 1-5 to 5-5. And then that's, okay, 1-5 is Aurora. I should check whether or not this is right. If I can get down there, that is. Uh, 1-5, great. Go! 2-5 to 1-5. I'm gonna predict that the lag starts from loop 5 onwards. Which, I mean, that doesn't really make any sense because I'm looking at the map. I'm looking at the map and you're not, hold on. The map is that we were at 1-5, which is one of these, no, 2-5, which is one of these, that one. We're going around to 1-5 Aurora. So around here, I think the lag was done. Not that it really matters to anyone. Oh, I was pointing with the mouse. You couldn't see that, could you? No, you couldn't see that because I was pointing with the mouse and the mouse doesn't appear on the map. Oops. Why did I'm looking back at the old designs, the old junctions, and I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I put those there? A lot of things have changed since I built those old junctions. Actually, like, what's over there? Anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure this should be so high up. Like this thing here, shouldn't that be lower down on the ground? I don't know, man. Huh. There was a little bit of lag there. But not there, interesting. It's very slight, you barely notice it. Just thinking about like the old railways, things like the Transcontinental Railway, Trans-Siberian Railway, which was a bit of a disaster. Trying to get that built. Like when they first built train tracks all the way across the continent, and how that opened up vast new areas for development. And made a lot of the trade economically viable. Not that any of that applies to Minecraft. But if there were trade, I would have made it economically viable. If the villagers were smart enough to travel on this train network. Because like, take the United States for example. I mean, they pushed west, yeah, and they like settled people. I guess they kicked out all the Native Americans, and then they settled people, and they pushed the frontier. But in the early days, before the trains, like you would move out there, you would have your little homestead, you would have a farm, I guess, and then you'd grow your own food, and you were just out there on your own, pretty much, with the other people who were out there. And it was mostly disconnected from the rest of civilization. Especially inland. Like when you're on the coastline, there's ships, and ships are easy. Relatively easy. But like in the inland United States, like that's where the Old West was. And you know, the Old West was quite famous for being lawless and kind of like disconnected from reality in some ways. And it was, right? It was like in the middle of the continent. Until the trains came through, and then all of a sudden you have people crossing from one side to the other and bringing the coastal cultures into the inland as they did so. And the same is true for a lot of places, right? I mentioned the Trans-Siberian Railroad earlier. In the United States, on the south, there were the rivers, right? The Mississippi River, which, you know, allowed ships to go inland a bit. And so the south could be developed in a relatively coherent manner. What I'm trying to say is that the availability of transport really determines different cultures. Like in the United States you have East Coast, West Coast, the South, and then the Old West, which is just like its own thing. And they're all separate because they developed separately before the railroads really got built. And they retain some of that cultural difference afterwards. Alright, yeah, at loop 5, the question is, has it started lagging? A little bit. Not that noticeable. We are about, I guess, 3/5 of the way around the loop. 3/5 of the distance from loop 2 to loop 1, that is. It is noticeable, the lag. And by the time we get to loop 1, it will be really noticeable. Alright, let me make a prediction. By the time we get to the snow, it'll be really predictable. Not predictable. Noticeable. I guess also predictable because you get it every time you go over a switched track to activate the pistons here. And right there you go. And right here. thin slice of a house. I'm just thinking, with how inefficient some of the things in Minecraft is, how do people manage to mod this game successfully? I guess they kind of don't. A lot of the mods just kind of don't work, even with the very slight changes in the base game. But I'm just thinking now, like, if the pistons themselves could barely survive half an hour of continuous usage, how do you add more complex things without the whole game just failing and falling apart? But maybe that's a piston problem. Maybe the piston is especially bad. Alright, we are at the snow. And we do get a stutter every time we go over a switch. And sometimes even when we don't. We stutter when we don't go over a switch because pistons are activating ahead of us. Sometimes you can see it in the distance. Like there, those are pistons, and when they load in, they activate. There, you can see that rise up there. And there. Let's see, 1-5 should be the first junction after we arrive at the local loop, I mean. After we exit the regional loop into loop 1. The first one is 1-5. There it is. So after this we go from 1-5 back to 5-5, and that should actually be the shortest one because the loop 5 to loop 1 link is the longest. So we skip that one and go through the other 4. And I should be able to do that before I end the stream today. And we actually did just spend the whole day checking the 5s. And then next week, we will spend the whole day checking the 1s. And then I'll be sure that the whole network is without mistakes and bugs.